to demo the Azure file sync, on my server, I'm going to just open the C drive. And on the C drive, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to name it Sales. So we'll do that. Sales. In the folder, I'm going to create a file. And I'm just going to name the file Jan Sales Data. That's all I'm doing on the on-premise server itself. Now, I'm going to go to Edge. Now, if you don't have Edge installed, you can just, easiest way is to go to Google and just type Edge, and it'll bring you up to the Edge download, and you can just install it on your server itself, or Google Chrome or whatever browser you prefer. But I'm going to open portal.azure.com, and I'm going to sign in with my Azure account. Under my favorites, you'll see storage accounts is in the list here. Now that's under favorites by default, but if for some reason you don't see it, you can just go up top to search and just type in storage and it'll be in the list. I'm going to click add. Now it tells me I don't have any storage accounts, so I need to create a new one. If I scroll up in this window here, this is my subscription. I'm going to create a new resource group just for this. So create new, and I'm going to name it Storage RG. And I'll just OK that. So that's going to be a new resource group. Now the storage account itself, its purpose is to store any type of data you want. If it's going to be file shares, anything like that, just storage in Azure, just goes in a storage account. Now, the name of the storage account does need to be unique in Azure. So I'm going to name it RTS Storage. Says that name is already taken. So I'm going to try 01. That seems to work. Does not say it's taken. So RTS Storage 01. It's in the East US region. I'm going to just leave it in that region. For performance, standard or premium, as it says, scenarios that require low latency, you'd use premium. You're just going to pay more for it. I'm not interested in that. For redundancy, I could decide if I want this to be locally redundant. So within the same data center, if there was a server failure or some type of failure just within the data center, your server would still remain online. So if the server died, it'll run on another server. If the entire data center died, that's where you get into these geo options like geo redundant, geo zone redundant. But I'm just going to choose locally redundant. I'm just going to click review plus create. That's all I need to define here and create. And that's going to create our storage account. Takes just a moment for that to complete. That's done. So now I can click go to resource, but instead I'm just actually going to click on the storage accounts itself. Now sometimes you do have to refresh if you immediately go back and click on it. And sometimes it takes a couple of refreshes there. But there it is. So my RTS storage 01. Under this storage account, it gives me different types of data storage that we can actually place here, but I am only interested in file shares right now. So I'm going to click File Shares. And I'm going to create a new file share. And for the name, I'm going to name it Sales. Now, an interesting thing here is the name has to be all lowercase. Like if you added an uppercase letter, it'll just give you an error message saying only lowercase letters, numbers, hyphens, must end with letter or number. So can't end or begin with a hyphen. But I'm just going to name it Sales all lowercase. And I'm not interested in setting a quota, so I'm just going to leave that blank and click Create. So that's our Sales file share that actually shows up in Azure. Now, if I go to this Sales share, I'm just going to click on it and it'll open. I can upload data directly here. So I'm just going to click Upload. I'm going to select a file. Well, I'm going to go to my desktop. I don't have anything on my desktop. So what I'm going to do is actually just create a new file. And I'm going to call it February sales data. So this is truly created on the desktop of this machine, this Feb sales data. But I'm going to upload that. And it's going to show up here. So if I'm going to just close that little upload complete. If I minimize this for one moment, you'll see that's the text file we actually just created that's now been uploaded. Well, back in the Azure portal itself, you could even connect to this. A pretty interesting thing, I'm going to click connect. It gives me the PowerShell syntax. So I'm using a Windows drive right now. So it says, what drive letter do you want to use? I'm going to leave it on drive letter Z. You see this PowerShell syntax here? Now, we don't need to go through all the syntax, but what I'm going to do is click this copy icon right here, copy to clipboard. Now, I'm going to open this PowerShell ISE. In the scripts pane here in my PowerShell ISE, I'm just going to right click and paste. So that's all the syntax we just copied from the Azure portal. I'm going to click this play icon to run the entire script here. So that's going to run that entire thing. What should happen, when I click on this PC, it worked. I have this sales network location that now shows up on my PC. If I open that, that is the February sales data we just created. So now, on my local PC, I have a mapped drive to Azure. Anything you put in that drive, it's going to now show up in Azure. If you create a new file, it goes back to Azure, just like you have a mapped share in your on-premise network. Pretty interesting. Well, what we can do to go one step further, if I'm in the Azure portal, let's close some of these windows here. I'm going to go to search up top, and I'm going to search for Azure File Sync. You'll see over here in the marketplace, there's an Azure File Sync. So it brings up this deploy, and it says, choose your subscription. It's already selected. Your storage group, that's the storage group I want to put it in, but this will give you a list of all your storage groups, and you pick the appropriate one, or you create a new storage group. Now it says, what do you want to name the service? I'm going to name it RTS Sync 01. Region, I'm going to put it in the East US. And that's it. Review plus create. And I will now create. That's done. So you can click go to resource. You could also go back through the resource group itself. That resource group we put this in was storage RG, and you'll see it show up there as well. But I'm just going to click go to resource. And that's the RTS Sync 01. Well, now, if I scroll down, actually I don't even need to scroll, but you'll see there are two options here. There's a sync group, and there is a registered server. What I'm going to do is click on this sync group. Well, when I click the sync group here, it says, what do you want to name this? I'm going to name it RTS Sync Group. I'm not that creative, so I'll choose a simple name. That is my subscription. I'm going to choose my storage account. That's the one we just created, RTS Storage 01. Now it says choose an Azure file share. This is the share we just created in Azure, Sales, and I will just click Create. So the sync group is what's going to contain on-premise and the share in Azure, and they will just sync to each other. So sync group has now been created. Well, almost finished. Says it's validating. As that is thinking, because that'll finish on its own, I'm going to click on this registered servers here. Right now, nothing shows up. What we have to do is download this Azure File Sync agent. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to download that to the local server I'm actually using. So if we scroll down here, there's a download. It gives me the option to download this storage sync agent for server 2016, server 2012 R2, server 2019. Well, 2019 is the one we want. I'll select that and next. And that is downloading here. So that's done. I'm going to just click this open file. Now, it's in your downloads folder, so you could go to downloads and click on it there as well. What I'm going to do now is just walk through this little storage sync agent setup. So I'll accept the license. Now it says, where do you want to install the sync agent to? I'm accepting the defaults there. Do you need a proxy server for the sync agent to connect to the network? Usually you'll leave this on, use the existing proxy settings configured. That's just so this can connect to the internet itself. I'm not changing anything there. Do you want to use Microsoft Update to keep this current? I'll say use Microsoft Update. That's fine. Do you want to automatically update if a new version becomes available? I'm going to leave that with the default settings as well and just install. So really, I accepted all the defaults. Very simple questions, but it will install the agent. Then we'll walk through a very short configuration. That's done, so I'll just click Finish. It automatically loads this updater and says it is up to date. So I'll just choose OK. Now it wants me to sign into my environment. So you have the option for Azure Cloud. That's what we're using. If you are in China, there's an Azure China Cloud. If you are under a U.S. government agency, there's a U.S. government or German cloud. I am just Azure Cloud, so I'll just sign in. I'll enter my Azure credentials. That sent me a text message. I'll verify. So that's their additional security. Now I have my Azure subscription. I have a list of resource groups. We know Storage RG is the resource group. And that is the storage sync service we just created. So we know authentication worked. I know this is now connected because populating this with settings from our Azure subscription. Takes just a moment to register. We passed all our checks, so we are now done. If we go back to the Azure portal, I'm going to go back to my sync group. And I'm going to open the sync group here. You'll see right now, it says it has one cloud endpoint, but it says it has 0 server endpoints. So I'm going to go to this add server endpoint. And it says, this is your list of registered servers, only RTS-DC1. So I'm going to choose that. And it says specify the path. Now that's the path that I want to synchronize from. So I know on RTS-DC1, I know it's at the root of the C drive, we created that sales folder. That's it. I'm going to click create. and my server endpoint should show up here. So that was accepted. It tells me here. So we know that's working. It is provisioning. That'll take just a moment. Enabling sync. Now, as that is actually finishing, I'm going to let that just run from here. There's nothing else I'm configuring right here. I'm going to go back to my storage account, and I'm going to open that file share. Sales. Now, it may take a moment, but if we refresh a few times, that January, I clicked refresh again and it just showed up. So that's our Jan sales data. So we know this is actually synchronized. Now, the map drive we added, if I go back to the map drive that's showing up here, you'll see Jan sales data shows up here. So picture this. I have some users in the office. Users in the office, you may have some like desktops that never leave the office. And this sales, we'll say that's a shared folder. You have some users that map directly to this in the on-premise environment. You have other users that travel. They will connect through Azure because they're not often on your on-premise network. Those users, you would be able to run that PowerShell script there, and they map to that same share, but they map to it in Azure. Any changes on one side simply synchronize to the other back and forth. So no matter where users are, as long as they have an internet connection, if they're external, they will have that map drive in Azure. If they're on-prem, they can have the map drive directly to the share itself, or they can still have it mapped to Azure. I mean, it does not actually matter. Now, if I don't actually want that, that map drive, just like any map drive, you can actually go through and you can disconnect, and it'll just remove that, that drive. Just like a traditional mapped network drive, just resides in Azure. So very user-friendly overall.